Prepare to be pissed off with this story because that's the proper reaction. Congress overrides D.C. voters, keep sales of marijuana illegal in district. Congress overrode D.C. voters. A GOP-backed ban on weed sales in Washington, D.C. was preserved in a sprawling government funding bill passed by Congress on Thursday, despite opposition from advocates who say the provision overrides the will of the district's residents years after they voted to legalize marijuana. The Harris Rider, a provision barring the legalization of recreational marijuana sales in the nation's capital, named after its chief proponent, Representative Andy Harris, sailed through the Senate late Thursday, a day after passing the House as part of a larger $1.5 trillion spending omnibus package to fund the government through fiscal year 2022. Congressional Democrats had pushed to do away with the provision, opting not to include the rider in the government funding bills unveiled by appropriators in both chambers last year, but negotiators say the rider was reinstalled in appropriations after sharp opposition from Republicans. This is where they took a stand, keeping weed illegal. Quote, "We don't like the fact it's there, but it was a choice between providing D.C. and the American people with funding for their big priorities and still having them and not having them," said Senator Chris Van Hollen, chair of the Appropriations Subcommittee on Financial Services and General Government, told The Hill ahead of the vote on Thursday. Quote, "Republicans were the ones who insisted they were ready to shut down the government," said Van Hollen, whose panel handles D.C. appropriations. "So shut down the government if they can't override the will of the voters and keep marijuana illegal in D.C." Harris fought for the rider back in 2014. The same year, nearly two-thirds of D.C. voters voted to legalize marijuana for adult use in a ballot initiative. Congress has since blocked the district from adhering to the will of the voters in each annual spending package, even as the issue appears to have fallen through the cracks in spending negotiations, with a number of members saying this week they were either not following the status of the rider or unaware of its existence. Wow. Okay. So, if you're ready to be even more pissed off about this, new poll just came out. Civics poll. Should cannabis be legal? Yes, 71%. No, just 19%. By the way, majority of Republicans now are on board with legalizing recreational marijuana. And you have Republicans in D.C. flat out blocking it. Flat out blocking it for D.C. in particular, and of course they're blocking it for the entire country. Now, look, all this stuff is moot anyway, to tell you the truth, because Biden is the president of the United States. He could, through executive order, legalize recreational marijuana for the entire country. All he has to do, as the head of the executive branch, is remove marijuana from the Schedule I substances list. If you want to, he could make it like Schedule 3 or something, but I say he should just take it off the list completely, and then boom, it's legal recreationally. Now, you'd probably need some framework as well as to what the rules are around it being legalized, but at the very least, you can decriminalize it. And he could do that today. He could do that with the stroke of a pen. That's it. And he's choosing not to do it because he doesn't believe in it, and he doesn't want it. And again, let me reiterate, 71% of the country wants it, and we don't have it. And in D.C., they voted for it, and they were overrode by a corrupt and archaic and primitive thinking Congress. And my reaction reading this story is not just one of frustration. It's also one of it makes me want to lean even more into this idea of having the American public, having a people's branch of government, or having a system in place where every time you go vote for president, you vote on the top 5 issues directly and democratically. Because if you have that system in place, there's no doubt that the governance would be more intelligent. Because even though people may be historically ignorant about various stuff, they tend to vote for things, when you give them the specific issues, that would help them. And most people have some semblance of reason and common sense on a lot of basic issues. So we should have either another branch of government, the people's branch of government, or we should have a system where every time you go vote for president, you vote on the top 5 issues of the day. And then we'd already have a $15 minimum wage. We'd already have legal marijuana. We probably would have already ended a bunch of these wars. We'd have universal pre-K and elder care and the extension of the child tax credit, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a crime that we still have a government that blocks our will so casually. I mean, over 2/3 of D.C. voters supported legal recreational marijuana. And that was all the way back in 2014. And they still don't have it, and it's being blocked further now. And, of course, the Democrats didn't put up a fight. You have Joe Biden, who could change this national nightmare, end this national nightmare today through one executive order, and he's not doing it. And he's not doing it. And even though his approval rating is low and it would bump it up massively going into the midterms, he'd get probably a 5-point bump if he just legalized marijuana through executive order. And we're not seeing it. We're not seeing it. So it's a goddamn shame. I mean, this is real criminal stuff, man. Like, I get it. I get the issues with direct democracy, that you can't have the majority vote to take rights away from the minority. That's a big issue. Like in 1955, if you go to Mississippi and have them vote on whether or not black people should be considered equal citizens, they would have voted no. And that's a problem with direct democracy. Like, it's a real issue. But having said that, that's why you have a constitution. That's why you have rights that are laid out. And the way around that is to say, look, the Constitution is set in stone. It's guaranteed. But everything that's not a rights issue should be open to democratic opinion, direct democratic opinion. And that would end this hellscape that we're in right now. Really frustrating stuff. They should have never put that rider in, and Biden should legalize weed across the entire country today.